What if protecting your peace wasn't selfish but sacred? You've been taught to be kind, to be available, to be strong for everyone else. But what if the greatest act of strength is learning when to walk away, quietly, with grace? They drain your energy, steal your clarity, and call it connection. Not all toxicity is loud. Some of it whispers, some of it smiles. This video is your map back to stillness before you forget who you are trying to please the world. Peace isn't found by escaping the world, it's built by mastering yourself in a chaotic world. The most powerful thing you can do is remain unshaken. Discover the 11 Stoic ways to protect your energy and finally reclaim the calm you've been craving. 1. Guard your peace like sacred ground. There comes a point in life when something subtle but life-changing happens. You begin to understand that your energy, not time or money, is your most valuable currency. It's not just the hours you spend or the dollars you earn. It's what fuels your decisions, your clarity, your reactions, your presence. It's the quiet force behind how you show up in the world, how you love, how you lead, how you withstand pressure. And the moment this realization truly lands, something inside you shifts. You stop running to explain yourself to people who never really listened. You stop letting every demand, every opinion, every drama steal pieces of you. You stop negotiating your peace just to be seen as nice. You begin, instead, to guard your inner world like sacred ground, not out of anger, not out of arrogance, but out of deep respect for the life you're building and the energy it requires. The Stoics taught this long before self-care became a trending topic. To them, peace wasn't passive. It wasn't something you stumbled into when all was well. Peace was the reward of discipline. It was the result of choosing your thoughts carefully, guarding your focus, filtering your inputs, and saying no without guilt. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't talking about avoiding the world. He was talking about building a fortress within it. In today's world, where noise is constant and comparison is addictive, that fortress is more essential than ever. Because here's the truth, not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves a seat in your mental arena. We were taught that being a good person meant being constantly available, always listening, always forgiving, always accommodating even when it hurt. But that's not kindness, that's emotional martyrdom. That's self-abandonment in the name of approval. And here's the Stoic truth most people avoid. If you don't set the boundaries of your peace, someone else will. And they will not do it with your well-being in mind. Your peace is like a garden. It needs tending. It needs pruning. It needs protection from careless footsteps. Let too many people walk through without intention, and suddenly your clarity fades. Your focus dulls. Your spirit dims. It's rarely the loudest people who do the most damage. It's often the subtle ones. The people who constantly ask for your time but ignore your value. The ones who call you to catch up but never ask how you're doing. The ones who bring tension cloaked as connection. These people don't come to help your garden grow, they come to pull up the roots. And they do it slowly, quietly, until you forget what your own energy felt like when it was whole. So here's the invitation. Start treating your inner world as sacred. Really picture it. Close your eyes and imagine your mind as a quiet temple, a place of stillness and insight. Ask yourself, who gets to enter? Who do you allow to rearrange the furniture inside your spirit, and why? Most importantly, who have you let in that continually leaves a mess behind? Whose presence makes your breath shallow, your heart race, your calm disappear? That's your signal. That's the red flag we're taught to ignore. But Stoicism says, pay attention. Not everything that comes to your door deserves to be let in. And just because someone wants your attention doesn't mean they're entitled to your energy. You don't have to explain your peace. You don't have to justify your boundaries. You don't even have to announce them loudly. You can simply say, "Not here. Not in my space. Not in my mind." This isn't selfishness. This is strategy. Because the truth is, every time you say yes to someone who drains you, you're saying no to the part of you that wants to build, to grow, to align. And if your energy is being pulled in 100 directions, how can you create anything meaningful? Your purpose requires presence. Your values require bandwidth. Your peace requires maintenance. And all of that starts with intentionality. Who are you allowing in? What do you tolerate that you secretly resent? Where are you making yourself small to keep the peace while destroying your own? The Stoics would urge you to reflect deeply here, to stop mistaking exhaustion for generosity, to stop thinking that the most noble thing you can do is endure what drains you. Instead, they'd tell you guard your soul the way a wise warrior guards his post. Calm, focused, unwavering. Here's a practice you can try. Visualize your peace as a glowing circle around you. When you feel tension rising, ask yourself, would I allow this energy into my home? If the answer is no, then don't let it into your mind. It's that simple, and it's that powerful. You can love people from a distance. You can care deeply and still choose your own healing. You can say, "I understand," while still stepping away. Because not everyone wants to grow. Not everyone wants resolution. Some people want chaos. Some want control. Some simply want company in their own misery. And you've outgrown that. You don't need to fight. You don't need to yell. You don't need to make a grand exit. Sometimes the most powerful act of self-love is a quiet one. A boundary drawn in stillness, a phone call declined, a conversation left unanswered. And here's the beautiful part. The more you honor your peace, the more peace becomes your default. The more peace becomes your presence. People start to feel it when you walk into a room, not because you demand attention, but because your calm speaks louder than chaos. So today, start small. Say no once without guilt. Take 15 minutes for silence. Decline the drama, even if it's tempting. Build the habit of treating your peace like a sacred altar, because it is. And when the world starts to spin with noise and demand again, as it always will, you'll have a place to return to. Within. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's not distance. That's discipline. That's not coldness. That's clarity. And most of all, that's the most stoic thing you can do too. Don't attend every emotional battle. You're invited to others, an unspoken rule. Most people never question. If someone pushes you, you must push back. If someone disrespects you, you must stand your ground. If someone insults, mocks, gossips, undermines, or provokes you, then you must respond. But what if that rule was never really true? What if responding isn't always strength and silence isn't always weakness? What if the Stoics were right all along, that the most powerful man in the room is not the one who shouts loudest, but the one who chooses whether or not to speak at all? The world is full of emotional invitations. Some are loud. A friend explodes at you, hoping to trigger a reaction. A colleague criticizes you in front of others. A stranger online leaves a comment designed to pull you into debate. Others are subtle, a sarcastic remark disguised as humor, a passive-aggressive text, a backhanded compliment, and each time, it's like an envelope, sealed with bait, quietly placed on your doorstep. Inside, it says, react, match this energy, defend yourself, prove something. But here's the hard truth most people never accept. You are not obligated to open that envelope. You don't have to RSVP to every emotional invitation that shows up in your inbox. And you certainly don't need to fight a battle just because someone else started it. Epictetus said it best: if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That line cuts deep, doesn't it? It means the fire didn't just start outside you, brought kindling to it. Your reaction, though understandable, was still a choice. And that's what Stoicism teaches us. No one drags you into drama without your consent, even if that consent is unconscious, even if it's disguised as standing up for yourself. But real strength is not in matching energy, it's in managing yours. Think about it. How many times have you walked away from an argument and felt worse, not because they won, but because you lost something? Your peace, your clarity, your center. How many times have you replayed a conversation, wishing you hadn't said that last part, wishing you hadn't lowered yourself just to be heard? You see, some people don't want resolution, they want reaction. They feed off the chaos, they bait you into their storm, not to solve the issue but to drain your calm. Because when you react, they win. Not because they were right, but because they pulled you out of alignment, because they got to dictate your emotional state. That's not power, that's surrender. So what if the next time it happens, you did something radically different? What if, instead of matching their heat, you brought cool air? What if you practiced emotional judo, letting their force pass right through you? No tension, no drama, just presence. Imagine someone lashing out at you. Their voice is raised, their words are sharp, they're trying to get a rise, but you stay still. You listen but don't absorb, you hear but don't internalize. You witness their chaos but refuse to join it. That silence, that pause, that breath, that's power. Because it's in those seconds between their action and your reaction that your freedom lives. That's the space where you decide who you want to be, not just how you want to respond. And no, this isn't about being passive. This is about being strategic. Stoicism isn't about rolling over. It's about rising above. It's not weakness to disengage. It's wisdom to walk away when the battle costs more than the victory. And most arguments, they're not about the truth. They're about ego, about someone needing to be right, needing to be loud, needing to be seen. But that's their need, not yours. Your purpose is not to prove. It's to preserve your mind, your energy, your mission. You don't have to correct every false narrative. You don't have to fight every false assumption. You don't have to participate just because you're provoked. You can simply say, "This doesn't serve me," and step back. That's not retreating, that's returning to your baseline, to your higher self, to your clarity. It's a strange thing, but the more you stop reacting, the more unpredictable you become. And people don't know what to do with someone who doesn't flinch, someone who doesn't argue back, who doesn't defend every accusation, who doesn't jump into the pit. That kind of composure is unsettling because it reveals the chaos in the other person by contrast, and it removes the fuel from their fire. Let them yell, let them twist your words, let them gossip, provoke again. You stay still because your mission is too important to be interrupted by petty battles, because your focus is a resource and drama is a thief. Next time someone tries to drag you into their whirlwind, ask yourself, is this about resolution or attention? Am I reacting to prove something or protect something? Is this worth my peace? Not your pride, not your ego, not your image, but your peace, because that's what's on the line every time you choose to engage. And no one, not a stranger, not a friend, not even family, deserves a piece of your peace unless they're willing to protect it. 2. This is not about building walls. It's about building discernment. It's about knowing the difference between confrontation that heals and confrontation that wounds. You don't need to say the final word. You don't need to win the argument. You just need to win yourself back. Here's your practice. The next time your heart rate spikes, the next time your jaw clenches, the next time you feel that urge to prove or defend, pause, inhale, exhale, ask, is this my storm or theirs? And then, if it's not yours, don't enter it. Let them keep the storm, you keep the calm, because you've outgrown the need to be right all the time. You've outgrown the need to be understood by everyone. You've outgrown the habit of throwing your energy into battles that aren't yours. That's not indifference, that's intelligence. And when your life starts reflecting that discipline, when people can no longer bait you into their emotional traps, you'll notice something else. Your peace expands, your clarity sharpens, your purpose deepens. Because you're finally living from the inside out, not from the noise but from the stillness behind it. And that, friend, is the Stoic way. 1. Say no and don't explain it. There's a quiet, almost revolutionary kind of power in the word no. Not shouted, not barked in defiance, just spoken plainly, without guilt, without over-explaining, without softening it with 1,000 justifications. Just dash no. Most people struggle with this, not because they don't know what they want, but because, somewhere along the way, they were taught that saying no is selfish, that being a good person means being agreeable, that kindness means always saying yes, that worth is measured by how much you give even when it costs you your peace. But Stoicism flips that upside down. To the Stoics, virtue wasn't just about generosity, it was about alignment, integrity, knowing who you are, and living accordingly. And that includes protecting your time, your focus, your energy, even when it makes other people uncomfortable. Saying no is not an act of cruelty, it's an act of clarity. Because every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are saying no to something that could restore you. And let's be honest, how many of your yeses are driven by fear? Fear of disappointing someone, fear of being judged, fear of being labeled difficult, selfish, unhelpful. So you say yes to the gathering you don't want to attend, yes to the phone call you don't have the bandwidth for, yes to the project that's already pushing your limits, and afterward, you're left drained, resentful, scattered, wondering where all your energy went. That's not kindness, that's self-betrayal. That's abandoning your own needs in order to meet someone else's expectations. And over time, if you keep doing it, you forget where your yes ends and where their demands begin. But here's the truth, you don't owe everyone access to you. Your time is not public property. Your energy is not a communal resource, and your emotional availability is not a vending machine where anyone can push a button and receive. The Stoics remind us that living a life of reason means acting from intentionality, not compulsion. People-pleasing is a form of compulsion. It feels noble, but it's rooted in fear, not wisdom. And fear makes terrible choices. It convinces you to sacrifice your clarity to preserve an image. It makes you shape-shift to avoid confrontation. It teaches you to abandon your truth in order to maintain peace at your own expense. But saying no calmly, without guilt, that's where your power lives. It's how you reclaim your day, your focus, your sense of alignment. And here's something most people won't tell you. You don't need an elaborate excuse to say no. You don't need to come up with a detailed backstory about how busy you are. You don't need to pretend to be overwhelmed just to be allowed to protect your space. You don't need to apologize for choosing yourself. No, I won't be able to. No, I need some time for myself. No, thank you. Those are full sentences, and anyone who needs you to defend them is not looking for clarity, they're looking for control. People who respect you will respect your no. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will resent it. Let them think what they want. Let them say you've changed. Let them feel disappointed. Because you have changed. You're no longer willing to trade your peace for approval. That's not coldness. That's self-respect. That's the foundation of a life lived on purpose. There's a moment when you'll feel the pull to justify, to fill the silence with explanation, to soften your stance with excuses. But pause there, breathe, and ask yourself, am I about to betray myself just to keep someone else comfortable? If the answer is yes, stop. You don't need to go further. Because that one moment of silence after you say no, that moment when your body tenses and your mind screams, say more. That's your test. That's the sacred ground between the old you and the self-possessed, boundaried, peaceful version of you that you're becoming. If you can hold that space, if you can let the no stand on its own, you'll find a new kind of freedom. You'll begin to notice how much mental noise disappears when you're not overcommitting. You'll begin to feel the energy that returns to you when you stop leaking it through guilt. You'll begin to hear your own inner voice again, clear, confident, centered. And yes, some people won't like it. They'll say you're distant. They'll call you selfish. They'll accuse you of changing. But what they really mean is, I liked it better when you had no boundaries. They miss the version of you who was always available, always agreeable, always too afraid to say no. Let them miss that version. You don't owe them a return, because you're no longer here to be consumed. You're here to live with intention. That means protecting your yeses, guarding your time like treasure, and using your no as a tool of liberation. You don't have to burn bridges. You don't have to cut people out with drama. You just stop overextending. You stop giving what you don't have. You stop watering gardens that don't grow you. And in doing so, you stop betraying yourself just to make someone else more comfortable. Here's your invitation. This week, practice one guilt-free no. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be honest. Decline the event. Let the call go to voicemail. Say no to the favor you don't have time for. And then don't explain. Don't justify. Don't follow up with an apology. Let the no breathe. Let the silence stand. Let your peace rise. Because every time you protect your energy with a quiet boundary, you reinforce the truth that your life is yours, that your presence is sacred, and that you are not responsible for managing other people's feelings about your limits. The Stoics understood this. They didn't spend their time trying to please everyone. They focused on aligning with their values. They built lives rooted in clarity, not compliance. And so can you. Say no, not to reject others, but to respect yourself, not to shut people out, but to stay aligned within, not to be rude, but to be free, because freedom begins with boundaries, and boundaries begin with one powerful word: no. 1. Detach from their moods. They're not yours to fix. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like the air was heavier? Even before a word was spoken, someone's mood wraps itself around the walls like smoke, thick, silent, suffocating. And suddenly, without meaning to, you shrink, you tread lightly, you calculate every word, because you've learned consciously or not that their emotions dictate the rules. Their silence is a warning, their sighs are signals, their tension becomes your tension, and somewhere deep inside, a voice whispers, maybe if I say the right thing, maybe if I cheer them up, maybe if I carry the weight for both of us, everything will calm down. But here's the quiet truth you were never taught. Their mood is not your mission. You are not the emotional janitor of every space you enter. You are not responsible for regulating the temperature of someone else's storm, and no amount of overgiving will ever be enough for someone who refuses to do their own emotional work. Stoicism, in its deepest wisdom, teaches detachment not as coldness, but as clarity. To feel deeply, but not be swept away. To love without losing yourself. To support without surrendering your inner stillness. This isn't about apathy, it's about anchoring. Because when you allow other people's emotional weather to become your climate, you stop living intentionally. You start reacting. You start bending, twisting, compromising not to grow, but to survive. You become a version of yourself that is more manager than human, more fixer than friend, more sponge than soul. And the cost, it's subtle at first. A little less sleep, a little more anxiety, a constant hum of guilt that follows you into every decision. But over time, you begin to forget what peace feels like. You lose sight of your own needs. You start thinking, maybe this is just how relationships are, as if emotional exhaustion is the price of connection. But the Stoics would tell you otherwise. They'd say, hold your center. Don't confuse compassion with codependency. Don't confuse empathy with entanglement. You can care deeply and still say, this is not mine to carry. You can love someone and still say, your emotional state is not my responsibility. Because true love, true connection isn't built on rescue missions. It's built on shared responsibility, on mutual respect, on each person showing up whole, not expecting the other to fill the gaps. You are not here to be someone's emotional therapist unless that is the role you've chosen and been invited into with consent and boundaries. You are not here to absorb pain like it's your purpose. And if someone repeatedly makes you feel like their peace depends on your compliance, that's not love, that's control. Now, detachment doesn't mean abandoning people. It means separating your sense of self from the waves they're riding. It means saying, I see you, I hear you, but I will not drown with you. Because real support doesn't come from joining someone in their suffering. It comes from standing on the shore with a steady hand, saying, you can get out of this, but I won't sink with you to prove that I care. You are not cruel for refusing to co-sign someone's chaos. You are not distant for protecting your mental clarity. You are not cold for saying, this emotional storm is not mine. You are wise, and that wisdom starts with awareness. Ask yourself, do I feel drained after being around this person? Do I feel guilt when I prioritize my needs? Do I feel like I have to manage their mood just to keep the peace? If the answer is yes, those are red flags, not of failure but of overfunctioning, of carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. So how do you detach? Not with anger, not with distance wrapped in silence, but with gentle, firm stillness. When they complain, don't dive in. When they guilt trip, don't defend. When they sulk, don't chase. You stay grounded. You stay calm. You let their emotions pass like clouds, not absorbed, but observed. And here's the thing, if you've been the fixer for a long time, this shift will feel foreign, uncomfortable, even painful. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've become distant. They may even accuse you of being selfish. Let them. You are not responsible for their interpretation of your healing. You are not required to shrink so someone else doesn't have to grow. And when that guilt creeps in, whisper to yourself, I can care without carrying. I can love without losing myself. Because your calm matters, your clarity matters, your energy is not a renewable source to be spent rescuing everyone who refuses to rescue themselves. You are not their lifeboat. You are your own sanctuary. And if they truly love you, they will rise with you. If they don't, they'll resist your detachment because it means they have to face themselves. Either way, you're no longer abandoning yourself to keep someone else emotionally afloat. That's not cruelty, that's sovereignty. It takes time. It takes courage. It takes uncomfortable pauses and moments of doubt. But over time, something beautiful happens. You feel lighter. You breathe deeper. You begin to notice how much of your anxiety was never yours. How much of your fatigue came from emotional labor you never consented to. And you remember who you are beneath all the noise, beneath all the moods you've inherited, never owned. That is the gift of detachment. It gives you back. So here's your reflection. The next time someone walks into the room with a storm, don't become the weather. Stay the sky, still, spacious, untouched. Because peace isn't just about what you feel. It's about what you refuse to carry. And in that refusal, you find your freedom. Too. Recognize energy vampires and walk away silently. Not every storm makes noise. Some arrive quietly, not with thunder and rage, but with a smile. Not with shouting, but with subtle guilt, endless venting, or constant crisis. They don't always mean harm. They may not even realize what they're doing, but the result is the same. You walk away feeling drained, heavy, scattered, like someone reached into your mind and stole your spark. These are the people the Stoics would call corrosive influences. And in today's world, we know them as energy vampires. Now, this isn't about mysticism or metaphor. It's psychology. It's nervous system fatigue. It's emotional weight that accumulates quietly over time until you realize you're exhausted and done. Know why energy vampires come in many forms. The friend who only calls when something's wrong yet never asks how you're doing. The co-worker who thrives on drama and chaos, always pulling you into the latest problem. The family member who speaks kindly but whose presence is wrapped in passive aggression, subtle jabs, and unspoken expectations. They don't always yell. They don't always insult. They may even be charming, sensitive, or nice. But pay attention to the effect they have on you. Because Stoicism doesn't just teach us to watch what people say. It teaches us to observe how people make us feel. Marcus Aurelius wrote about protecting the inner citadel, a space within you that must be kept guarded, free from corruption. He wasn't talking about swords and soldiers. He was talking about your mind, your clarity, your peace, and energy. Vampires don't attack your body, they seep into that mental space. They slip past your logic with pity, with flattery, with shared trauma or fake intimacy. And before you know it, you've given hours of your time, your focus, your bandwidth, and received nothing but noise in return. They offload. You absorb. They vent. You listen. They spiral. You try to save. And it's never enough. You give them your light hoping it'll help them see clearly. But they don't want clarity. They want attention. They want validation. They want to avoid their own work by making you do it for them. And here's what most people never realize. You can't heal someone who refuses to take responsibility. You can't carry someone who has no intention of walking. You can't keep pouring into a cup that has no bottom. That's not helping. That's enabling. And it will hollow you out. So what do? You don't confront. You don't accuse. You don't try to change them. You walk away, silently, firmly, with grace. Because energy protection isn't always about bold declarations. It's about quiet decisions. It's about disengaging from dynamics that drain without needing anyone's permission. You don't need to write a speech. You don't need to explain your absence. You don't need to teach them a lesson. You simply stop feeding the pattern. Less texting, slower replies, fewer meetups, more time spent in spaces that restore you. And when they say, "You've changed," you can smile. Because they're right. You have changed. You no longer abandon yourself to manage someone else's emotional mess. You no longer mistake availability for virtue. You no longer confuse guilt with duty. You understand now that your energy is sacred, that your time is finite, that your peace is too expensive to be spent on people who never replenish it. This doesn't make you a bad friend. It makes you a wise one to yourself. And yes, the guilt will come, the doubt, the voice in your head that says, "But they need me." But here's the deeper truth. They don't need your presence. They need their growth. And if your presence prevents that growth, then stepping away is the most loving thing you can do, because some people won't change until the people they rely on for emotional escape finally say, "No more." So here's your practice. Start noticing not just what people say, but what you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel drained? Do you feel guilty? Do you feel obligated to perform, to rescue, to tiptoe? That's your signal. And when you feel it, begin the quiet exit. Reduce access. Refuse to engage in the same emotional loops. Stop explaining and simply preserve your space, not out of anger, out of love for your own sanity. Because walking away isn't abandonment, it's self-respect, it's boundary. It's the unspoken sentence that says, "I deserve peace too." Some will understand, some won't. That's okay. Their comprehension isn't your responsibility. Your only task is to protect the space inside you where focus, clarity, and calm reside. The Stoics remind us, it's not what others do that harms you. It's your willingness to carry it, to internalize it, to give it power. So when someone's presence becomes a tax on your spirit, you don't need to announce your departure. Just leave the table where peace is no longer being served. Walk away, silently, strongly, unapologetically, and notice what returns. Your breath, your ideas, your sleep, your joy. Because once you stop explaining your exit, you start reclaiming your energy. And in that reclaimed energy, you begin building a life where peace is the standard, not the exception. 1. Control your inputs, not just your surroundings. Most people think protecting their energy is all about avoiding toxic people, and yes, choosing who you allow into your physical space matters. But there's something far more subtle, more dangerous, and it's something we almost never question. It's not just who you surround yourself with, it's what you allow into your mind every day. Without realizing it, you are feeding your nervous system a diet, a mental menu full of sights, sounds, headlines, images, voices. You scroll through your phone before bed. You let the news play in the background. You binge watch shows filled with fear, outrage, or endless drama. And then you wonder why. Do I feel so anxious? Why am I so distracted? Why do I feel heavy when nothing's even happened to me today? The Stoics, long before we had smartphones and screens, warned us, you become what you give your attention to. And today, that statement is more relevant than ever. Your peace isn't just affected by people, it's shaped by input, by what you consume, by the noise you allow past your filters. The ancient Stoics didn't have Twitter or 24-hour news cycles, but they practiced something we've largely forgotten: intentional focus, mental discipline, selective attention. They didn't just guard their time, they guarded their thoughts, because they understood your thoughts shape your emotions shape your behaviors, and your behaviors, repeated, shape your life. So if you feel like you're always on edge, if your brain can't slow down, if your creativity has dried up and your focus scatters like sand in the wind, it might not be about the people in your life, it might be about what you're feeding your mind. Ask yourself honestly, were you scrolling past late at night? What kind of voices are filling your ears through your headphones? What stories are you unconsciously absorbing through music, news, or even memes? Because even when it feels like background noise, it's shaping your inner landscape. If you consume outrage, you'll become reactive. If you consume comparison, you'll become insecure. If you consume despair, you'll begin to feel hopeless. And if you consume triviality, you'll find your life reflecting the same. But the opposite is also true. If you consume wisdom, you'll begin to speak from depth. If you consume silence, you'll rediscover clarity. If you consume inspiration, your own fire, reignits. So here's the shift. Don't just protect your space from toxic people. Start protecting your mind from toxic inputs that be ruthless about your mental diet. Mute the accounts that trigger envy or outrage. Unfollow what no longer aligns. Turn off the noise. Close the tab. Pause the scroll. Your brain isn't meant to process 1,000 microsignals per minute. It's not designed to be fed 10-second dopamine hits all day long. Eventually, it collapses under the weight of too much meaningless input. And in that collapse, your purpose gets buried, your focus disappears, your ability to think deeply, to reflect, to create, to breathe gets compromised. Think of your attention like soil. If you let garbage be dumped into it, don't be surprised when nothing meaningful grows. This isn't about being perfect. You don't have to become a monk. You don't have to swear off entertainment. But you do have to be intentional. Start asking yourself, is this nourishing me or numbing me? Is this inspiring me or agitating me? Is this making me feel expanded or small? Your inputs are choices, and those choices become your reality. It's no different than what you eat. Junk food occasionally won't ruin you, but consume it every day, and your body responds with fatigue, inflammation, disease. Your mind works the same way. If you feed it constant negativity, don't expect inner peace to flourish. And once you realize this, you begin to reclaim control. You stop being a passive recipient of information. You become a gatekeeper. You curate your environment internally. You read books that deepen you. You watch things that align with your values. You choose silence over background noise, reflection, overstimulation. And in doing so, you create space again. Space for original thoughts. Space for stillness. Space for joy that doesn't come from dopamine but from alignment. Here's a practical start. Make a list 2 columns. Column 1, inputs that drain you. Column 2, inputs that nourish you. Be honest. Maybe it's a podcast that used to inspire you but now just makes you anxious. Maybe it's a friend's social media that's filled with endless rants. Maybe it's background news that you don't even realize is whispering fear into your subconscious. Now look at column 2. What makes you feel centered? What makes you breathe deeper? What reminds you of your values, your vision, your why? That's the beginning of your new mental diet. And no, you won't be perfect. There will be days when you binge the noise again. But now you'll notice, you'll feel it. You'll know when your mind is becoming cluttered again. And that awareness is everything. Because once you become conscious of your inputs, you stop blaming the world for your internal chaos. You take ownership. You choose with precision. You don't just live in reaction, you live in intention. That is the Stoic way, a quiet, deliberate refusal to be shaped by the noise of the world, and a fierce commitment to shaping your mind from within. So the next time you feel overstimulated, anxious, depleted, before blaming your schedule or your circumstances, check your inputs and ask yourself, is this energy coming from my life or from what I've been feeding my mind? Because peace doesn't just come from who you avoid. It comes from what you invite in, from what you allow to echo in your thoughts. Protect your mind like you'd protect your home. Keep it clean. Keep it intentional. Keep it sacred. Your energy depends on it. To avoid the need to correct or convince others a certain kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with physical effort. It's not the tiredness that comes from long days or short nights. It's the fatigue that comes from friction, from constantly feeling the urge to explain yourself, to correct someone's perception, to make others see what you see. It's the quiet weariness of trying to make your truth land in a mind that's not open to receive it. And yet, we keep trying. We correct the misinformed. We argue with the resistant. We try to help those who aren't ready, who haven't asked, who only want to defend, not understand. Why do we do this? because we think being right will bring relief, because we think understanding will lead to connection, because we think truth, if explained just the right way, will change the world around us. But here's the lesson the Stoics knew deeply. Not every mind is ready. Not every argument is worthy. Not every person is meant to understand you. And that's okay. In a world where opinions are identities and belief systems are battlefields, trying to change someone's mind can become a full-time job. But the Stoics would ask, what if that job was never yours to begin with? Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Let's update that for today. You have power over your focus, not other people's opinions. You have power over your inner peace, not how others interpret your boundaries. And you especially do not have power over someone else's readiness. It doesn't matter how many facts you present, how many calm points you make, how many ways you try to help. If someone is committed to misunderstanding you, they will. If someone needs to believe you're the villain in their story, they will. If someone is addicted to being right, no amount of truth will feel like enough. So ask yourself, how many times have you left a conversation more drained than fulfilled? How many times have you replayed a discussion, thinking, if only I had said it better, maybe they would have understood? How much energy have you spent trying to convince people who never actually wanted to understand you in the first place? That energy could have gone into building your vision, into creating, into healing, into being present for the people who do see you clearly, but instead, it went into a vortex of resistance, of emotional tug-of-war with people who aren't arguing with your logic. They're defending their identity. Because here's the thing, when someone's beliefs are wrapped in emotion, your evidence feels like an attack. You may be offering truth, but they're receiving threat. So what's the answer? Discernment, the ability to know when to speak and when to stop trying, to recognize when sharing your truth is an act of clarity and when it's an act of ego. Sometimes we try to convince others not because they need it, but because we need to feel right. We want to be validated. We want them to change because it will make us feel safer. But the Stoic path is not about outer control. It's about inner freedom. Freedom from the illusion that your worth is tied to someone else's approval. Freedom from the trap of constantly explaining yourself to deaf ears. Freedom from the urge to push truth where it's not wanted. So here's the shift. Instead of asking, how do I make them see? Ask, is this even mine to say? Instead of thinking, how do I change their mind? Ask, what am I trying to prove and why? When the answer is rooted in ego, pause, let go. Speak only when it brings value, not validation. You don't need to be the professor in every room. You don't have to fix every flawed idea. You don't have to correct every narrative that casts you wrongly. Sometimes the highest form of wisdom is silence, not silence from weakness, but from strength, from the clarity that knows not every fire needs your breath. This is especially important when it comes to the people closest to you. Family, old friends, partners. Sometimes we chase their understanding the hardest because their opinions carry history. But even here, the Stoic principle applies. What is not yours to change is not yours to carry. You can let people think you're wrong. You can let them hold their version of the story. You can let them sit in their discomfort. And you keep walking. You keep growing. You keep choosing stillness over struggle. Because your life isn't a courtroom. You're not on trial. You don't need to present your case to everyone. You don't have to be understood to be at peace. You don't have to win the debate to walk in truth. You can simply step back, not in retreat but in respect. Respect for your energy, for your purpose, for your time. And when you stop trying to convince, you start conserving energy, conserving presence, Conserving clarity, you begin to live lighter. You start to feel stronger, not because the world agrees with you, but because you agree with you. Here's a practice to try. The next time you feel the urge to explain, pause, breathe, ask, will this bring peace or just more resistance? If the answer is resistance, let it go. Say less. Choose silence. Choose distance. And in that space, watch what rises. Watch how much lighter your spirit becomes. Watch how your inner dialogue becomes clearer. Watch how much more energy you have to live your truth, instead of constantly proving it. Because you weren't meant to spend your life convincing others. You were meant to spend it becoming whole. And when you are whole, you no longer need to be agreed with, to be steady. That is the Stoic path. Not control over others, but sovereignty within yourself. 1. Silence is your best shield to live in a world that worships noise, loud opinions, fast responses, bold declarations. We're constantly told, speak up, defend yourself, say something, clap back. And if you pause instead of pounce, if you choose not to react immediately, you're seen as weak, indecisive, passive. But the Stoics would shake their heads at this, because they knew what most people still haven't learned. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. Silence, used well, is a shield. It's easy to believe that reacting is power, that being loud means being strong, that getting the last word means you've won. But truthfully, the strongest people in the room are rarely the loudest. They're the still ones. The ones who sit in silence while others spiral in drama. The ones who observe, breathe, and move only when it matters. Because silence, real silence, isn't the absence of a response, it's the presence of mastery. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Let's go one step further. Sometimes how you don't react is the greatest display of strength. Think about the last time someone insulted you, provoked you, tried to pull you into their storm, and you didn't take the bait. How did it feel? Unsettling at first, maybe even unnatural, but later liberating. Like you walked away with your power intact, untouched, untangled. That's the gift of silence. It doesn't mean bottling things up. It means choosing when your energy deserves to be spent. It means knowing that not every attack needs a counterattack, that not every accusation needs a defense, that not every invitation to chaos needs your RSVP. Silence breaks patterns. When someone yells and you don't yell back, when someone gossips and you don't join in, when someone twists your words and you simply refuse to explain, you disrupt the entire dynamic. Because you take away the fuel, the drama collapses without your participation. And that's not avoidance, that's elevation. You're not rising above people. You're rising above your own need to be seen, to be right, to be validated. And that more than any sharp comeback is power. It's unnerving to people who are used to reaction. They expect heat. They want chaos. They're counting on your ego to take over. But when you choose silence, you hold your posture, you hold your center, you hold the one thing they cannot control, your inner peace. And that frustrates them, because your silence speaks louder than anything you could say. It says, "You don't get to decide how I feel." It says, "I know who I am, I don't need to prove it to you." It says, "I value my peace more than I value being right." But silence isn't just useful during conflict. It's healing in every area of life. Try sitting in silence in the morning before the world demands your attention. Try not responding to the pressure to fill every moment with sound or scrolling. Try letting a misunderstanding pass without trying to fix it. You'll notice something surprising. Your mind slows down. Your breath deepens. Your energy stops scattering. Because silence isn't a void. It's a container where clarity forms, where wisdom returns, where intention gets rebuilt. And the more you practice it, the more you begin to crave it. Not to escape life, but to meet it from a place of grounded presence. You begin to hear things others miss. You notice details. You read emotions beneath the surface. You respond when it matters, not just when your ego wants to. And people will notice. They'll call you calm. They'll say you have a quiet strength. But what they're really sensing is that you've stopped leaking your energy through constant reaction. You've stopped giving away your inner world in exchange for temporary wins. Here's what you learn over time. Not every line needs a correction. Not every insult needs a clapback. Not every misunderstanding needs closure. Sometimes, the most mature thing you can do is let it go without a word. Because when you need to explain yourself to everyone, you start living according to their lens. But when you can sit quietly in who you are, you start living according to your own. That's when silence becomes not just a shield, but a mirror, showing you how much noise you were using to hide from your own discomfort. So here's the practice. Start small. Let one insult pass. Don't defend yourself in a conversation that doesn't deserve it. Pause before sending that long text explaining what they didn't understand. And then watch. Watch how much energy you conserve. Watch how your mood doesn't get hijacked. Watch how your mind stays yours. Silence is not suppression, it's refinement. It's the art of choosing when to speak, and when your peace is worth more than your pride. It's trusting that your stillness says enough, that your self-respect doesn't need a megaphone. And yes, there will be times when you should speak, when silence becomes complicity, when the moment calls for truth, for courage, for confrontation. But more often than not, the battle that's baiting you is just noise. It's not about you, it's about their own internal war. And the minute you react, you become a character in their drama. So instead, become the still point, the steady flame, the calm center in a spinning world. Let others rush to be heard. Let them fill the space with noise. You let your silence speak volumes. Let it say, I don't argue with chaos. I don't explain myself to confusion. I don't abandon my peace to win small wars. Because you've realized something they haven't, that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom, sharpened by stillness and carried like armor. And once you learn how to wear that kind of silence, you become unshakable. Keep your emotional thermostat inner. Now picture this. You walk into a room. Maybe it's a workplace, a family gathering, or even just a casual get-together. But instantly you feel the shift. The energy is tense. Voices are sharp. Smiles are forced. Someone's upset. Someone else is anxious. And the rest are walking on eggshells. And before you even realize it, your chest tightens. Your breath shortens. You feel yourself absorbing the mood, matching the tone. Not because anything happened to you, but because the emotional climate took over. That's what happens when your emotional thermostat is set externally, when your inner temperature is dictated by the room you're in, rather than by your own intention. But the Stoics, ancient as their wisdom may be, understood this modern dilemma well. They taught us, don't let the weather around you change the climate within you. Easier said than done, right? We're human, we're social creatures, we're wired to mirror. It's how we empathize. It's how we connect. But empathy without boundaries becomes enmeshment. It's the difference between feeling with someone and feeling for them so deeply that you lose yourself in the process. And when your internal state is always adjusting to external emotional storms, you become reactive instead of reflective. You live on a roller coaster instead of a steady path. Someone else's anger becomes your frustration. Someone else's panic becomes your anxiety. Someone else's tension becomes your exhaustion. But here's the good news. You are not a mirror. You are a center. You are capable of being the calm in the chaos, the warmth in a cold room, the stability in a sea of uncertainty. But that starts with making a decision, a commitment to internal sovereignty, a choice to become the one who regulates, not the one who is always being regulated by others. Think of it like this: your emotions are like a thermostat. You set the temperature. Others might bring a chill, a heat, a storm, but you decide whether to match them or maintain your baseline. If you're constantly catching other people's emotional weather, you'll end up burnt out, overstimulated, and disconnected from your own truth. Because in trying to absorb everyone's emotional state, you forget to check in with your own dot. So how do we shift? How do we reclaim control over our inner temperature? It begins with awareness. Notice when your mood shifts and ask yourself, is this mine, or did I pick this up from someone else? Did I actually have a bad day, or did I just spend an hour in someone else's storm? That question alone can be revolutionary, because most of us don't realize we've been hijacked by someone else's emotions until long after we've started reacting to them. But once you notice, you reclaim the power to choose, to say, this panic is not mine, to say, this tension doesn't belong in my body, to say, this fear is not a signal, I just inhaled it from the room. The Stoics would call this the practice of returning to reason, of pausing before letting emotion drive the wheel. And here's the key: when you hold your emotional temperature steady, you don't just protect yourself, you influence others. Your calm becomes contagious. Your presence changes the room. Your steadiness anchors the people around you. You become a thermostat, not a thermometer. You set the tone. You don't reflect it. So next time someone walks into your space with a whirlwind of emotion, instead of bracing for impact, ground yourself. Breathe deeper. Slow your movements. Lower your voice. Widen your awareness. Say to yourself, silently but powerfully, this is their storm, not mine. I do not enter unless I choose to. Because real strength isn't found in avoiding emotion. It's found in regulating it, in choosing your emotional frequency like you choose the station on a radio. And sometimes that means being misunderstood. Sometimes people will expect you to get upset with them, to match their frustration, to spiral with them. And when you don't, they might say, why aren't you more upset? Don't you care? But the truth is, you do care. You care enough to stay steady. You care enough not to add fire to fire. You care enough to preserve your strength so you can respond wisely, not react wildly. This is emotional maturity. This is inner discipline. It's not flashy. It doesn't shout, but it's unmistakable. Because when someone is shouting and you remain soft-spoken, when someone is spiraling and you stay centered, when someone is projecting and you don't absorb, they feel it. Even if they can't name it, they respect it. And more importantly, you feel it. You feel the difference between being tossed by life and riding it. You feel what it's like to be the eye of the storm, not the leaf caught in the wind. So here's a practice. The next time emotions start rising in you or around you, pause. Before reacting, ask, what temperature am I at right now? Is this feeling mine or borrowed? Do I want to adjust to this or hold steady? This creates a gap, and in that gap, you get to choose. You stop living on emotional autopilot. You stop reacting to every trigger. You start shaping your own internal world, no matter what chaos is happening externally. And that's what Stoicism is really about. Not detachment but discernment. Not indifference but independence. Not coldness but control. You don't have to be emotionally numb to be emotionally wise. You just have to choose your emotional settings with intention. Because peace doesn't mean nothing happens around you. It means nothing controls you from within. So keep your thermostat internal. Set it on presence. Set it on grace. Set it on strength, and let the storms come. They'll pass, they always do. But your inner weather, that's yours to protect, yours to cultivate, yours to live in. Day after day. No matter who walks into the room. 1. Create sacred routines that refill you. Talk a lot about boundaries. We talk about removing toxic people, saying no, walking away. But there's a side of energy protection that often gets overlooked, and it's just as important as setting limits. It's the quiet, nourishing act of restoring what life takes from you. The sacred art of refilling your own cup, so you're not just avoiding depletion, but actively rebuilding your strength from the inside out. Because here's the truth, you can set every boundary. You can say no to all the chaos. You can cut out the drama, the gossip, the emotional vampires. But if you never give yourself space to recover, to breathe, to reconnect with yourself, you're still going to burn out. Why? Because energy isn't just protected, it must be replenished. And without replenishment, boundaries become barriers, empty walls with no fire behind them. The Stoics understood this. They were thinkers, leaders, warriors, but they were also craftsmen of routine, of ritual, of daily practices that kept their spirit aligned with reason, with virtue, with peace. Marcus Aurelius journaled every morning, not because he was a philosopher, but because he was a man trying to hold on to his clarity in a chaotic world. Seneca took scheduled walks in solitude, not because he hated people, but because he understood that the mind needs silence to stay sharp. These weren't luxuries. They were survival tools, not because the world was louder then, but because inner peace has always required maintenance. And that's the key. Peace is not a gift, it's a rhythm, a system, a personal ritual. Without that, even the calmest person becomes frayed over time. Even the strongest minds become distracted. Even the most disciplined spirits lose their way. So the question becomes, what refills you? Not what distracts you, not what numbs you, not what gives a temporary high, but what grounds you, what reconnects you to yourself, what brings you back to center, where the noise fades and your breath deepens. It doesn't have to be elaborate. You don't need incense and mountaintops. You don't need a perfect morning routine worthy of a YouTube vlog. But you do need intention. You do need consistency. You do need spaces in your day that are yours, truly yours. Because without them, the world will own your attention. Your day will be dictated by demands. Your mind will run, not reflect, and you'll confuse busyness with fulfillment. So what does a sacred routine look like? It could be simple. Waking up 15 minutes earlier to sit in silence before the world begins to pull at you. A short walk without your phone, just your breath, your steps, the rhythm of your own life. Journaling not for perfection, but to clear the fog and reconnect with your truth. Drinking your coffee slowly, with no headlines, no inbox, no notifications, just presence. These are not indulgences. They are anchors. They are the pillars that hold up your ability to think clearly, to respond wisely, to live with depth in a shallow world. Because the world will not ask you to slow down. It will ask for more availability, more answers, more output. And it's up to you to say, no, this part of my day is sacred. This moment is mine. This stillness is not optional, it's necessary. When you build routines that refill, you become more available to what truly matters. You gain energy not for more tasks, but for better ones, not to run faster, but to move truer. And over time, those small routines add up. They become the difference between reacting and reflecting, between burnout and presence, between feeling lost and feeling rooted. So here's a reflection. When do you feel most yourself? When do you feel most calm, most alive, most aligned? That's your ritual. That's your medicine. That's your reset button. Guard it. Schedule it. Build your day around it, not the other way around. Because when you wait until you're depleted to rest, you're already behind. But when you make rest a ritual, when you create space for your own voice, before the world drowns it out, you become unstoppable. You become the kind of person who doesn't need constant distraction because you're at peace with your own presence. And from that presence, you can give without resenting. You can serve without sacrificing your center. You can show up for others without leaving yourself behind. This is what it means to live from fullness, not from fragments. To give from overflow, not from emptiness. To show up whole, because you've made wholeness a priority. So today, don't just think about what you need to cut out. Think about what you need to build in. The rituals, the pauses, the sacred routines that whisper, "You matter, your peace matters, your presence is worthy of protection and nourishment." Because in a world that drains you without asking, the most radical thing you can do is this: refill before you run out. 1. Walk away when peace becomes impossible. There's a moment that comes quietly. It doesn't shout, it doesn't slam doors, it's not dramatic, it's not filled with rage. It's the moment when you finally admit to yourself, peace is no longer possible here. Not because you didn't try, not because you're incapable of compassion, not because you're weak, impatient, or unforgiving, but because you've reached the edge of what's healthy, because you've compromised everything but your soul, and even that is starting to fracture. We're taught to hold on, to fix it, to fight for it, to stay, endure, and prove our loyalty. But Stoicism offers a different path, not a cold path, not a selfish one, a wise one. Seneca said, "A wise man is content with himself, but not so much that he is willing to live among the wicked." That means you can have peace within you, but if the environment around you continues to violate your values, it will wear you down. Slowly, subtly, steadily. And when it does, staying isn't noble. It's self-abandonment. Some situations, some relationships, some jobs, some friendships are simply incompatible with the version of you that's trying to heal, to grow, to become whole. And when you realize that, truly realize it, walking away becomes not an option, but a necessity. It's not quitting, it's not giving up, it's coming home to yourself. But let's be honest, leaving is hard, not because you don't know it's time, but because you're grieving what could have been. You're mourning the story you told yourself, the potential you believed in, the hope that it might change, and you're terrified. Terrified of being misunderstood, terrified of being seen as cold, distant, disloyal, terrified of starting over. But here's the deeper truth. Staying in a place that breaks your peace is the slowest form of spiritual erosion. You won't feel it all at once. You'll feel it in small ways. The way your breath shortens before a phone call. The way your stomach tightens walking into that room. The way you rehearse your words so you don't set them off. The way your laugh doesn't feel real anymore. That's not connection, that's survival. And the moment you realize that, the moment you whisper to yourself, "I don't want to survive here anymore," is the moment you begin to return to your real life. Stoics didn't teach that we must stay and suffer endlessly. They taught discernment. They taught us to recognize when endurance becomes enslavement. Yes, strength is staying calm in the storm, but strength is also knowing when to leave the storm behind altogether. And leaving doesn't need to be loud. You don't need to make a scene. You don't need to announce your pain. Sometimes the most powerful exit is a quiet one, a decision made in stillness, a boundary honored in silence. You don't need to make them understand. They may never. You don't need to explain yourself 10 times. Once is enough if you say it to yourself. This is the moment where you stop fighting for someone else's respect and start fighting for your own restoration. It's the moment you trade proximity for peace, the moment you realize that not every chapter needs to become a book. Not every person is meant to walk the entire journey with you. Some were just meant to teach you something about what you value, about what you won't tolerate anymore, about what real love, real friendship, real peace feels like. So when it's time to go with grace, go with clarity, go with the quiet conviction that you are not abandoning anyone. You are simply choosing yourself. And yes, there will be silence, there may be guilt, there may be nights when you question it all. But over time, that silence will become serenity. That guilt will transform into growth. That questioning will become clarity. You will feel your nervous system settle. You will feel your laughter return. You will feel what it's like to wake up without dread. And you'll wonder why you waited so long. You'll realize that walking away was never about them. It was about finally choosing an environment where your soul could breathe, where your mind could think clearly, where your heart could rest. So if you're standing at that threshold right now, if your spirit has been whispering, it's time, listen. You don't need permission. You don't need consensus. You don't need everything to make sense. You just need to honor what you already know. Because staying in a place that costs your peace will always cost more than leaving. And when you leave, you're not just walking away. You're walking toward something, toward peace, toward clarity, toward wholeness, toward the version of yourself that no longer settles for chaos in the name of connection. This is your return to yourself, to your values, to the life that's been waiting for you on the other side of release. So walk away, not with rage, not with resentment, but with reverence. Reverence for your own spirit, for your future, for your right to be in spaces where peace isn't earned, it's respected. Because once you walk away from what drains you, you open the door to what restores you. And that is the final, most powerful act of energy protection. You don't just guard your peace, you choose it, you live it. You refuse to settle for anything less. And from that place, you become untouchable. Not because you've built walls, but because you've finally learned to walk with wisdom, with discernment, and with the quiet, steady grace of someone who knows exactly what their peace is worth. The final reflection. And now, as we come to the end of this journey, take a deep breath. Let the noise of the world begin to fade. Let your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench, your spirit rest. Because this wasn't just a list. These weren't just tips. This was a path, a quiet path back to yourself. A reminder that in a world full of demands, distractions, and drama, you still hold the power. Not the power to control others, not the power to escape every challenge, but the power to govern yourself. To decide where your energy flows, to choose stillness when the world chooses noise. Protect your peace as if your soul depends on it, because it does. This is what the Stoics knew. That strength isn't found in shouting louder, it's found in staying grounded. When life tries to shake you, that peace isn't a reward for suffering, it's something you build, moment by moment, boundary by boundary. And that freedom isn't granted by the world, it's earned by the discipline of your own mind. So tonight, wherever you are, whatever you're facing, whatever storms have come or gone, let it all go for now. Let silence wrap around you like a soft cloak. Let your breath be slow. Let your thoughts drift like clouds through a calm sky. You have done enough. You are enough. And you are allowed to rest. Tomorrow will come, and with it, 1,000 choices. But tonight, make this one, to return to yourself, to honor your peace, to remember that the greatest thing you can offer the world is a steady soul, a clear mind, and a heart that is no longer at war with itself. So sleep deeply, sleep wisely, sleep like a Stoic, calm, still, and untouchable. Good night, and may your dreams be as quiet and powerful as your peace.